The Old Guard.
Pretty good.
The Gina Prince-Bythewood
Mm.
new movie. This is known for
basketball too with Charlize.
Yep, and Secret Life of Bees too. Charlize, the old guard of the Secret Life. This is interesting, right? So, I mean, going into this movie, what was I really aware of? That there was an action movie with Charlize Theron. I wasn't really aware of like superhero undertones to this. Wasn't really aware of any of the themes to this. I knew Kiki Lane was in it. And I was liked her in Beale Street. Probably gonna like her in this. Let's check it out. And I left being like, for a Netflix movie, and I'm kind of like couching it with that. Pretty good action movie, and an entertaining plot. So I was left satisfied, which for a Netflix movie, other than like The Five Bloods, we don't get that often. So I'll take it. Yeah. How did you feel about The Old Guard?
Yeah, man, it's been really interesting. There was a lot of discourse this weekend about if people are naturally qualifying and lending more rope to films because they are straight to streaming. Mm-hmm. And also that's amplified because of quarantine and the lack of other options in theaters, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of people, and we do it too, we do levy expectations according to the way we're watching it. And Netflix films have a reputation of being not consistent in quality and usually on the cheaper end, unless it's something obviously made by an auteur like we just got with Spike or last year with Baumbach and Cuarón and all that, and Scorsese. So like it depends, right? But for The Old Guard, I think the plot, I like the plot as well, but the plot is not like anything out of this world. I think it's actually one of the weaker elements because it's just kind of predictable and down the middle. But I think the way the film is made, and it's an adaptation of a relatively new comic. There's like just human moments in the way this movie the story is told, and when you have that around, kind of supernatural powers, superheroes, if you will, it seems to go a long way because we don't get a lot of that in the big budget superhero movies we all go and see when they come out.
No.
And I think that's what kind of stood out to me. It's like it felt more lived in than a lot of the other superhero movies. And again, that's despite the fact that we have a plot that's familiar. We literally have these characters all familiar. They all fucking Wolverine. That's their power, right? They can't be killed, right? Or they don't stay dead, I think is the better way to put it, right? It's like we get it. There's nothing new there, but
everything living dies.
Yeah, I liked it. I was surprised.
I agree. The plot isn't mind-blowing, pretty especially for like an origin story type thing, which I don't know if I guess you can qualify this as like the Kiki Lane Niles character origin story, not really the rest of them. And maybe that's an interesting thing. We'll get like a spin-off show about them or something like that. Who knows?
They set it up for a sequel
for sure. But I thought the sci-fi elements and the superhero elements were pretty engaging when it first kind of like when you find out that these people are thousands of years old. I thought they were really like fucking with her, the Niles character. And then like when you find out that they're serious, like I had a big eye roll at first, and then I was like, actually, I kind of dig this. Like I kind of like that they come from different eras. They talk about like loneliness and like the burden of doing these things, and they also I think really flesh out, and the Chiwetel Ejiofor character really does a good job of doing this, really flesh out them as well-rounded characters, that they do a lot of good and also some really awful things that Kiki Lane's character was kind of opposed to and
kill a lot of people.
Conflict. Yes, kill a lot of people and sometimes people that maybe don't deserve to die. But in the end, the action is really good. Charlize Theron, I think this solidifies her as just the most bankable action star in the world in the last 3 years, which is just insane. Like
her and Cruise, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, if you had told me like 10 years ago Charlize Theron was going to be an action star, like the most bankable one in the world, I would have laughed at you. She was just a really beautiful woman.
It was a shit bet back then because Aeon Flux failed.
Yeah.
And she got a second chance with Mad Max, and then Atomic Blonde followed that. Yeah, I did like the action. I thought the choreography was actually pretty cool. Towards the end, you
Yeah.
have that one where it kind of focuses on them reloading their guns and getting more ammo off the guys they killed and passing
Mhm.
mags to each other. And it's like, again, kind of simple, but a lot of action movies don't actually show that shit. You're just
Yep.
supposed to assume that they got more ammo and they don't have an infinite mag, right? So
Mhm.
again, I kind of like that sensibility. Um, and the powers, I like that. Like they're not like overwhelming characters, right? It's like what happens to Theron and the first immortal she meets is she gets fucking dropped in the ocean because she's a witch, and she actually couldn't beat that circumstance for a very long time until the end of the movie. And it's like, oh wow, that's actually really compelling that like you have this like all these great gifts, but you're still kind of hamstrung by the technology and knowledge of the rest of the world.
Right.
On the other hand, once we learn about this and we know that the one guy, there's the two other guys are from the Crusades, and the other guys
Mhm.
died with Napoleon, and it's like, really cool. I wish we had an X-Men Origins Wolverine montage where we see them in the past doing shit, like when we see Logan and Sabretooth fighting in all the American wars. I was like, oh, that's a really cool touch, And like
Yeah.
we get just a taste of it, right? When they're like Charlie's character, like, wait, you know Rodin? What? And it's like, wait, I want to know who else you fucking know. I don't want Chicho
Right.
Ejiofor to show me on a board all the cool shit you do. I want to see you influencing history. That's
Yeah.
not a new thing, but it's fucking cool, So I
It
hope
is.
there's a lot more flashbacks like that in the sequel. And when I watched this on Saturday, it was the number one on the Netflix top 10. So I hope it's getting enough views to warrant just said sequel.
Yeah. There's I think a lot to just kind of like dig into about aspects of the movie, because I don't think this is a perfect movie in any sense. We've already kind of mentioned some of the critiques. One I have is the soundtrack. Beyond maybe like 3 songs, you get a Frank song. I think you get Godspeed, you get an El King song, but then you get just like this generic EDM over almost every single fight scene. And I was kind of like, man, I wish that they had just gone with like a regular score for this almost, or
Yeah.
even just like let the sound just like play for itself, because the action was so badass. But sometimes when you have like a huge marshmallow drop just coming over it, I'm just like, okay, it's taking me out a bit. But I think there's a lot more good with this than bad, and this is definitely a win for Netflix for sure.
Mm-hmm. Did you recognize the actor who plays the villain, the very very familiar archetypal bad CEO villain?
Harry Melling? No,
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him.
Matt Smith looking ass. That is the same guy who played Dudley Dursley in Harry Potter.
Wow. Really thinned out. Good
Yeah.
for him. When I think of Dudley, I just think of the chubby one, I guess.
Eating all the
Really,
cake in the corner.
Yep, really phased out of the later movies. Yeah, interesting. We're gonna talk about Palm Springs in a second. There's a that actor that I wanted to see if you could recognize too. But yeah, any last thoughts on Olgar before we move on?
Iki Lane.
Yeah,
She's real good.
the
I can't wait
stars
to see
rising.
what's next. She's a bit of a late bloomer as far as young actors go, but she's already 28 and really only 2 big roles between this and Beale Street. But she's a really talented performer, and I think she really helps ground some of those more human moments in the story because of her talent as an actress, like Charlize. And that kind of talent just naturally elevates material. So looking forward to what's next for her.